All right, so question number 6. What was the common intent behind the original message of Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad? What was the common intent? So here we have 3 figures, Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad, which are the basis for what are called the 3 major monotheistic religions of today. That'll be what in modern times they would say Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And all 3 of these traditions can be seen as branches which really grew out of a common stock, a common root, and that root being the seed of Abraham. And as time went on, they've obviously branched out, went into different directions, to the point where, for some, it may seem like there's no commonality. Jews don't like the Muslims don't like the Christians like the Jews, and Muslims don't like the Jews don't like the Christians. Like, it's this conflict between all these different schools of thought, which have developed over the generations and become increasingly estranged from each other. It's like the branches have went further and further and further away. But there actually is some fundamental threads of continuity. There actually is a spiritual underlying unity at the basis of the message of Moshe, Yeshua, and the Prophet Muhammad. And what I like to do is, again, I'll open up for any comments from the student body relative to this subject before I go in and provide my explanation. Or what I might start doing, because everybody likes to be so shy, is I'll get the ball rolling with the commentary, and then if anybody would like to, feel inspired to share, or to add on to it, they can feel free to. Now, when it comes to the subject of Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad, we already got a hand raised. Let's roll with that.
Yes, Duda Abishab or Duda Sha'altia.
Oh, they're feeling bold now. We got 2 hands.
Mm-hmm.
Shalom, Toda.
Shalom.
It's Sha'altia.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The intentions was to bring Yah to the people and the people to Yah. That was their intention.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's a very practical way to put it. To bring Yah's consciousness, the consciousness of Yah, the understanding of the wisdom of Yah, to bring that into the minds and the hearts and the lives of the people is a very important thing, especially in a world where people are falling away from that higher understanding of spirituality. So that is definitely a part of the common intent, to not so much bring something new, but to remind the people about something old, As a matter of fact, to remind the people about something eternal, which is the eternal wisdom of Yah. And in different generations, there may be different languages spoken. There may be different political norms of the day. There may be different details based on which generation you're dealing with. But at the core root of it all, that was the main idea, And in future classes, we can go deeper into details concerning these different traditions, what their similarities are, what their differences are, because there's many differences, but how we in our generation ultimately go back and thread the needle to understand the spiritual unity at the basis of it all. And so that's definitely a good answer to the question, that one major point of their objective was to reintroduce the people to the spiritual standards of the Most High.
Yes.
Now for the next hand.
Sister Regina.
Yeah, I was going to just mention this, second that with Sister Shultia. They attempted to, the 3 of them attempted to establish, a righteous nation, and that coincides with the plan of Yah.
Perfect. Now that's actually the textbook answer.
Yes.
So great. Remember, the idea of Yah in ancient Hebraic thought is not merely individualistic, like personal life philosophy, that ultimately, in order for example, the Torah, when you study it, you can clearly see that it's not designed specifically for individuals. is designed for a group. It's designed to be the basis for community. You know, there has to be different pieces to the social puzzle in order for the whole thing to be applied in its fullness. It's not like just a motivational book for personal development. Personal development is a part of it, but it's from an African perspective, from a Hebraic perspective, our personal development is connected to our social development. You've heard the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And so to really bring Yah consciousness into the world, you need to not just have an individual with a message, but you need to have a group of people who exemplify that message, who represent what it looks like when that message is applied. You need a group of people who can represent an example of an alternative way to build a society, so that now societies can see an alternative way to go. That's not possible with simply a doctrine. So what you'll find with Moses, you know, in the redemptive struggle coming out of ancient Egypt, it was let my people go that they may serve me, right? That was Yah's message. So let these people go so that they can serve the Creator, and in so doing become an example for other nations of how to serve the Creator and help people get back on track with the original idea of truth and righteousness from all the political corruption and economic exploitation and social injustice, which has become so common, you know, in world history. So each of these men were tapping into that ancient formula of accessing the wisdom of Yah and bringing it to their people to raise up the consciousness of their people so that those people can then have an impact in the world. That was the formula. And as Abba Ben Ami wrote in God, the Black Man of Truth, in the digital version that I have, this is page 25. It says the plan, well, I'll go back actually to page 24. Africa was a powerful land whose people had tremendous faith in Yah prior to 1555, for it was Black African brothers, Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad, who set the tone for the basis of the three major religions of the world today: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. The truth concerning this matter cannot be found in the history and religious books of Europe or America. These Black men's intentions were to save first their people, and afterwards they would evince a holy people unto the world in accordance with the will of Yah and prophecy. So their attempt to establish a righteous nation coincides with the plan of Yah. So the plan of Yah was to establish a righteous nation, right? And the individual objectives of these spiritual leaders, and it's not just these ones, you know, we will go further and you'll see what David was doing, what was Solomon doing. You know, all of these Hebrew prophets, what were they doing? They were trying to get the nation to realign with its purpose of becoming a light to the nations. And that coincides with the plan of Yah. Even today, now on page 25, you know, higher ideals and a better way of life cannot be properly defined unless you have a contrasting, flourishing manifestation of what it means to progress outside of that society. So we need an example of a way to live, you know. One cannot speak authoritatively on the issue of establishing a nation founded upon the principles of the laws of Yah and emphasizing all of those values and obligations unless you actually have a people that have been redeemed, are expanding, and they're excelling through the application of those principles. This plan began with Moses bringing the children of Israel out of Egypt, making them a holy nation that would be a light to the Gentiles. So that's when he said Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad. We see Moses, like in the book of Exodus, he's bringing them out of the land of Egypt and creating this. He's giving them the Torah, right? He's teaching them the principles and the standards and the guidelines of righteous living, because the objective was to establish a nation governed by the laws of Yah so that the world could see the benefits of righteous living. Notice how I didn't say nothing about going around trying to forcibly convert people, right? It didn't say go around and culturally colonize people and force them to do this and force them to do that. It said simply create an example so they can see the benefits. And if they're so inspired, they can access the formula and apply it for themselves, you know? Yeah. And so that idea of creating that righteous model was essential. The Gentile adherence to ancient Christianity. So remember, all throughout the scriptures, that's what the main point was. That was the Mosaic covenant. All the future leaders were determined by their ability to get the society to realign with the Torah, with the principles of truth and righteousness, so they can be that righteous example that the Most High called them out of Egypt to be. Now, as that time process continues, eventually you get to the generation of Yeshua, and he's teaching initially for those Hebrews who have fallen away from their original purpose. And he's teaching them in an effort to get them to realign with the mission of being the people that Yah wanted them to be. You know, that's why he told them that you're the light of the world. He was trying to encourage and inspire and empower the people to realize that their purpose isn't to blend in with the ways of the wicked world. It was actually to stand out and to lead people out of that wicked world. Now, after the crucifixion of Yeshua, there were Gentiles who had picked up the message, and they saw that the Israelites were not aligning with the principles of Yah. The Israelites were in exile. They're in diaspora. They've lost that strength that they used to have. The temple of Jerusalem was destroyed, and they were just wandering. They're over there in North Africa and East Africa, just migrating. And so the Gentiles were like, hey, there's a opportunity here, you know, that we could be that nation that sets the standards and leads the world, you know, through how we interpret the scriptures. And so that's exactly what they did. The Gentile adherents to ancient Christianity understood the same opportunity existed for them through the adherence to the teachings of Jesus. And their idea was that they could establish that nation, which would spiritually be Israel and thus become the light of the world. Now, when the Gentiles take that idea, that wasn't the original intention of Yeshua. Remember, Yeshua wanted to raise up the Hebrew people because that's who the covenant was with. That's why he said, don't go the way of the Gentiles, but go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Because that group was supposed to be the group. That population was supposed to be the population. But when we fell away from that, foreigners were able to come and take the mantle, take the ball that we dropped and play with it, you know? And so they spiritually defined themselves as Israel in the Catholic Church and twisted the teachings to make it all support their dominion and have exercised an extraordinary international influence on behalf of their theology now for centuries, all based on the idea that they've replaced Israel as the light to the nations. And then here, I've also mentioned how it was that same original spirit that prompted Muhammad to inspire the Ishmaelites to be that chosen people. Now, all of these men knew what needed to be done. There had to be a standard of godliness to be a light to the nations. And so basically that's the key point there, that they wanted to, the original founders, Moses, Yeshua, and Muhammad, all were trying to raise up the spiritual and cultural consciousness of their people to align with that biblical purpose of the plan of Yah, of establishing a righteous nation who can positively influence the world at a time when the world is being influenced by other things. And the key, though, is to understand that in today's world, we can see that all of those attempts that were made through Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have fallen short of the standard originally envisioned by these men as things became increasingly corrupted, you know, by humans. So that's the essential idea there with the common intent between these three men and their spiritual leadership.